Hello, my name is Jamila El Bougrini and I am a financial analyst at Invest Securities. We're going to talk today with Aram from NOXXON.
Hi, my name is Aram Mangasarian. I'm the CEO of NOXXON and happy to be here today to talk with you, Jamila. Thanks for taking the time.
My pleasure. We are halfway through the year, an opportunity to take stock of this first half. The biotech sector is particularly affected. The benchmark index recording a down performance of around minus 12.4% since the beginning of the year versus minus 14.5% for the mid and small index, thanks to a stabilization of the biotech performance since May and because of a bad performance of the mid and small sector during the same period. Aram, what is your perception of the biotech situation in general and how NOXXON is positioned in this particularly tense context?
Yeah, thanks, Jamila. It's a good question. Indeed, for small cap biotechs that need to raise money in the short and medium term, it's certainly very difficult right now. In particular, because many investors have actually retreated and stopped investing in high risk and high potential reward stocks like biotech. But I'm actually confident about our positioning right now for a few reasons. First is the really strong clinical data that is coming out of our NOXXON program, in particular in glioblastoma, and I think we'll talk about that later.
Absolutely.
And also the team we've assembled at NOXXON, which is really amazingly dedicated and working very hard. Over the last few years, we've actually strengthened the team despite the difficult context, and we have, I think, one of the leaner biotechs today in terms of cost, but also when you look at the amount we spend on G&A versus overhead. We're dedicating most of our funds to R&D.
We can talk maybe now about the data. The ASCO Congress was held a few days ago. Can you come back to the Gloria study and more particularly to the new elements presented since the first publication of the phase 1 results during the Q1?
Sure. So just for our listeners, the Gloria study is our phase 1/2 trial in glioblastoma, and this trial tests NOXXON in now different combinations, but the dose escalation was with radiotherapy. And these patients are patients with a very poor prognosis. They're patients where the surgeon can't remove all of the tumor, and so there's a residual mass that can regrow quickly. And as you probably remember, Jamila, that they all have this biomarker called for MGMT promoter being unmethylated, which tells us even before treatment that these patients won't respond to the standard of care chemotherapy. So this is a very, very poor prognosis population. What we talked about in February was really an update at a high level of how the data was maturing. And we disclosed that the rates of radiographic partial response, so shrinkage of more than 50% of the tumor, had increased appreciably. At the time, the prior disclosure was 22%, and what we ended up reporting at ASCO later was 40%. So 40% of the patients had more than 50% shrinkage with A12 after radiation therapy, and 90% of patients had tumor shrinkage. So it's really a very strong result that was new. The other thing that we reported at ASCO, in addition to a very good safety and tolerability profile, was that we were having some very interesting immune effects in tumors. So now we have 2 patients who have repeat tissue sampling in the brain near the tumor site. And what we see in both patients is a massive influx of activated, so granzyme B positive, proliferating Ki67 positive cytotoxic T cells. And this suggests that we're overcoming the exclusion of these tumors to the immune system, and also the immunosuppression you see inside the tumors. We also have something which might be an explanation for that, because what we see is an increase, and I'm simplifying a lot here, as you know, of the good macrophages, the M1 macrophages, with no consistent changes in the bad or M2 macrophages, which tend to promote tumor growth. So between the improved clinical outcomes and this quite exciting mechanistic data linking to the immune system, I think the data we reported at ASCO was a pretty big step past what we reported earlier in the year.
Great. To complete these very promising first results, several extension studies in glioblastoma are currently ongoing to evaluate 3 combinations of NOXA12 with different drugs. Can you tell us what is the data that you have obtained from these studies as of today?
Sure, happy to. So this morning we released data on the combination of NOXA12 with an anti-VEGF antibody, bevacizumab. And what we saw was surprising even for us. We were expecting good things, but we saw 100% of the patients, and we have 5 of the 6 patients evaluable already at different lengths of follow-up. But they all had tumor reductions, and they all had more than 50% tumor shrinkage, which is great news for the patients and for the program. I can tell you also that the extent of shrinkage is between about 55% and 95%. So in that case, the tumor there's not much left. It's a very, very deep response. The other exciting thing about that data is that the responses appear to be durable. So we're seeing in the patients that have a patient that has 4 months follow-up and the patient that have 6 months follow-up, not only are they achieving this radiographic partial remission, they're maintaining it. So this is very exciting, and if that continues for much longer, then I think we're getting into some pretty unprecedented territory in glioblastoma.
Let's talk strategy. You have a very clear positioning in TME. Based on the data you have obtained to date, what is the strategy you plan to apply for the coming months?
Great question. So, based on the announcement today, we've decided to focus on the glioblastoma indication and NOXA12. In particular, on the combination between NOXA12, radiotherapy, and the anti-VEGF inhibitor. We think this is the approach that has the highest priority of getting a return for investors, because this is the path that we believe is the fastest to get NOXA12 to market now. The other thing we're going to do is talk to the regulators. Once we have some more mature data from the triple combination of radiation, NOXA12, and anti-VEGF, to discuss with them what the best path to approval is and what they're willing to do with us. And I think that's going to be crucial in terms of defining our next steps. And that's something we plan probably for Q4 of this year, once we have more mature data.
Okay. In biotech, the crucial matter is cash. Can you tell us what is your current situation and if your cash position will allow you to carry out your new strategy?
Yeah. So our current cash position takes us into October with the current plan. And I'll add that we have another 20.5 million available via the Atlas convertible debt vehicle, of which 2 is even more secure because there are no preconditions based on what's going on in the market for us to draw them. So we have a safety net. We think that the key to unlocking value in the company now is to simplify the capital structure and move towards investors that are fundamental. So, if possible, to move away from things like convertible debt.
Okay, that's a great news. Your financial visibility covers until Q4 of this year. On the one hand, what are the financial options you are looking at to extend your financial visibility? And on the other hand, what are the actions you intend to implement to improve your financial situation more globally?
So we're looking at a number of different types of financing, including, of course, what's already available to us with the convertible debt solution. And we compare that to options that are available from other investors, private placements, for example. Those can come as straight equity investments, or they can come associated with other instruments like warrants. And then we have to evaluate whether that makes things so complex that it's no longer worth doing. And then it's simpler to stay with things like convertible debt. It really depends on the details of each structure. And we're talking to investors in both the US and Europe to try and understand how interested they would be in any potential financing and what types of structures they would need to see.
Okay.
The goal, as I mentioned before, is moving to these fundamental investors who will invest in the company and then stay with us for some value inflection points. And I think what we need to do to attract them, is to simplify the capital structure, minimizing things like convertible debt, and also present them, as we've tried to do today, with a clear story. Focus on where the data is really successful and a program to move that forward in glioblastoma as quickly as possible.
In terms of news flow and catalysts, what does NOXXON have in store for us for the coming months?
A number of things. Our AGM is scheduled for the 29th of June. And one of the items to vote on, and we hope the shareholders will approve, is a name change from NOXXON Pharma to TME Pharma, which stands for Tumor Microenvironment Pharma. This represents really all the changes we've made over the last years away from being a platform company to becoming a company focused on the treatment of cancer by modulating the tumor microenvironment. So we thought it was important to mark this change with a change of name. Other things that are coming up include a consolidation of our shares, 100 existing shares to one new share. This will give us, we hope, a little less volatility, in particular percent-wise in the price, and hopefully will give the share the stability that larger investors want to see. So it's part of the migration and making the company more attractive to larger institutional investors. And, of course, the expansion arms. We're hoping to present data, more mature data, from the anti-VEGF combination arm with an OXA12 later this year at a conference. Okay. And we'll announce when we know more about being accepted or not. Okay. As you know, it's never guaranteed that they take you.
Yes, sure. Thank you, Aram, for your answers and for all these precisions.
Thank you, Jamila. Thank you for taking the time, and to our listeners, thank you for tuning in. We look forward to giving you all the news and updates the rest of the year.